YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this thing. Amazing UMX Ultra Micro Extreme Turbo Timber Evo. Brought to you by Brian Phillips RC and E-flite, obviously. But this thing is gonna be awesome. It's all the things we loved about the original Ultra Micro Turbo Timber with a new livery and also a new 3S capability, which is what we're really after, and it's gonna be amazing. So guys, let's fly it right now. Also, before I forget to talk about it, I'm gonna say 10 seconds worth of this stuff because I don't wanna forget to mention it. If you guys hated those micro PHNs on the most recent and old E-flite packs like this, now it's equipped with JST, just like we have in our UMX pits, which is amazing. So V2 UMX pits uses the JST connector, and so does the 3S 300 that we've had for a while now, but you can now get a 50C version of the 2S with a Hextronics lead for balance lead and a JST discharge. We're gonna be flying ours on 3S still because we love 3S in this little flight platform, and make no mistake, it's one of the most capable UMX planes we've ever had, even on 2S. So throttle cuts off, takeoff flaps deployed. Here we go. Look at that thing in the air already. Need lots of trim. Full landing flaps. Look at that thing slow down, folks. Goodness gracious. Okay, I gave all the trim I've got. You know what I was trimming? I was trimming my throttle. Look at that, guys. Stop midair. Okay, out of the flaps. I was trimming the wrong control. I was trying to trim my elevator and I was trimming throttle. But guys, look how docile this thing is. Right overhead. Amazing control authority. It just flies so good. Okay, out of the flaps altogether. Try to get my down trim here on my elevator. Ooh, way better now. Trying to get that thing to flatten out for us. So if you guys aren't familiar with trimming, it's basically you watch the direction that the plane is going and then you counter the direction. Like you see how it yawed toward the house? So I gotta get a little bit of rudder going. I mean, you can definitely still fly it. It's just kind of annoying to have to correct for it. And I'm gonna go in front of you here. It's still totally flyable. But until you get your trim set, it's gonna be a harder flight and you won't enjoy it near as much. Okay, now we got a little bit more elevator. Got a lot of elevator clicks, but it is flying a lot better. I put my 300 milliamp 3S pretty much all the way forward on the strap, and it's been about where you want it. And when I say been, I mean we flew this thing in a snowstorm the other day for you, so we'll be showing that as well. And let's actually walk up here, camera crew, so we can maybe get in the sun a little bit. Right there, that's perfect. What a beautiful morning, guys. This is spring in Iowa. Look at the berms of snow. That's right, we got like 10 inches of snow last week. Not all at once, thank God.
Pretty close.
Okay, full landing flaps. Now watch this thing slow down, folks. Watch this thing. That's why I love Ultra Micro Extremes. These things are like a hobby grade flight experience in your backyard. And again, sub 250, so you don't have to worry about the federal agents knocking on your door or sending you a strongly worded letter. About the only thing I was bummed about on this plane is I didn't see anything about thrust reverse, and I don't think there is thrust reverse on it, and that's okay because you really, really don't need it unless of course you're flying off the water, which in that case you might actually really want it. Oh yeah, she's flying way better now. That long wing, just definitely, especially with the leading edge slats, you're gonna get a little bit more ballooning effect. And I think that's what I need to work out with the takeoff flaps. You get a little bit more ballooning than normal, and then full landing flaps. You see it just ballooning up there. I'm trying to go up and around the shadow because this for us is a morning. Whoa, crap. Okay, throttle cuts on. I guess I misjudged that speed. One minute. And as you can see, not broken, not even a little bit. These things are actually not super resilient. I guess I did break the landing gear free. It just popped off. Okay, so let's keep flying, guys. There's a little plastic insert that just popped free. I don't know what the heck happened there. I think it was just pilot error, but it might have been something else. I guess we'll keep our eye open for it. There's takeoff flaps. Let's go up by the edge, please. Right there. Man, that is gorgeous. This is what I like doing with this plane, folks. This is not the Timber X UMX, but the Timber X UMX is amazing as well. It's just a different flight experience, and you have inboard flaps on this with, that's our timer, but we also have telemetry, folks. Pretty cool. So now you can fly until the battery is actually spent. Okay, so there's your takeoff flaps. Out of flaps altogether now. Okay, we're gonna do another clean loop. See how much better it is now? You can really get that thing to do what you want. Got manned aircraft, but they're way over there, and this thing is so dinky.
Oh yeah.
Oh geez. Did you see that giant glacier I just flew over?
Yeah.
But see, this is what's so nice about these UMX planes, is that you're flying essentially a hobby grade plane in a super small body. Let's come out here. I want to try going down in the bowl just a little bit, just to show people how amazing this thing looks. Look how smooth it is, guys. This is not a janky Yankee plane. You guys, if you watch our next video where we fly it in the snow, you're gonna notice it is quite janky compared to this, and that's because when it's that heavy of snow, good luck getting your trim figured out. And by the way, I gotta say, that's the most trim I have put into an E-flite plane probably in recent history, and here's why. These Ultra Micros have mechanical adjustments for all of the control axis, and I wanna make sure, wonder if I can get a touch and go on this hard snow. I'm just afraid I'm gonna break it if I do. They have ball link adjustments on all the control axis, which is pretty amazing on an Ultra Micro. I thought at first it's kind of a waste of weight, but then I'm like, this thing is so floaty and light. And look at that, you're not gonna get that with other ultra light airplanes. It's just not gonna be the same. And then this thing is definitely a STOL plane just like it was before. And I just love the way that it flies. But I gotta say, check out this trim, folks. Look at that, we still have battery. Look at my trim. All the way over and all the way, almost all the way up. And I feel like it could use a little bit more. But I hear it humming at me, so I don't wanna leave it that way. And that's because I'm in takeoff flaps, landing flaps. You're gonna have a little bit extra down deflection. What a beautiful, beautiful plane. If you guys are in the market for a UMX, do not look past this one. You will be making a big mistake because it is a great plane. You want one now, even if you've got the 2S version, you're probably gonna enjoy this. Although I must say, the UMX pits and the Timber X are great options as well, especially if you're concerned about remote ID, because they are gonna be for us sub 250. Love it. Okay, so let's go way up here. Now critically low. Good time to try to do this. And then safe. Guys, if you need safe, it's got safe. As you can see, I'm just gonna go ahead and set it into a turn, and there it is, okay? Now, another thing too, I just wanted to point out, I'm gonna jump in front of here, camera crew. If you guys are flying in safe, and you wanna do your trims in safe, you may know already, Okay, full landing flaps coming in. You may already be aware that flaps and AS3X compared to safe might actually leave you wanting for control authority because your trim will be different, significantly different with those limited bank angles and with safe on. So what you can do is you can set up a flight mode and actually have those trims attached to each flight mode, similar to what we did on the F-14, and we've done it on a number of other planes. But you don't have to do that on these planes. It just might make it a little bit cleaner. Now, we didn't go over that in the unbox just because we didn't really need the feature in our application and actually didn't know that we would need it yet. You want to get a nice low shot so you can see the droop on those wings. That is so cool. A little bit of splay on the wheels. They reinforced those landing gear struts or the pants or whatever you want to call them a little bit better. No, it's not pants. It's a wheel fairing, okay? So camera crew, I'm just gonna have you hold that for just a sec. See, this is what I'm talking about. Mine popped, oh, it just pushed into the foam. That's all it did. I thought, and that was when I crashed into the ground. I don't think this broke or anything, it just bent a little bit. So we lucked out there. Guys, I gotta say, super happy with the way this thing performs. Is it that much better than the 2S? I don't know that it's tons better than the 2S, but it's definitely gonna give you a wider flight envelope. You're gonna be able to pull out, you know, of prop hangs like you saw already. And this thing is just adding another notch to what we already had, which was amazing. So in terms of ultra micro extremes, this thing is extreme. You've got the telemetry. Now let's show the people real quick. I'm gonna have you hold that by the nose. I'm just gonna see if we can get this. We have timer going, 10 minutes of flying roughly. Got receiver voltage. Okay, got all sorts of telemetry data. And then of course we have our flight pack voltage. And don't forget, you don't have to even really have a runway for this thing because it is just such a great flying little plane. You could hand launch it all day and you could never have a runway. And this thing will put down wherever you want. You just don't want to put it down in a snowbank like that. Let's see if we can land it right in front of us. Nice, slow, full landing flaps. These wheels should walk on top of the snow just like that, which is pretty sweet. Let's see if we can do a STOL takeoff here. Oh yeah. See what I'm talking about? Nice punchy power, gets you off of the snow. And it actually looks a lot cooler in that kind of backcountry simulation. Let's do another landing here. Oh yeah, there you go, guys. So there you have it. It does everything you want it to do and more. And this thing is amazing. So if you haven't already checked it out, we want you to check the link in the video description below. If you aren't subscribed, consider subscribing. It really helps our channel. Click the bell for notifications so you can see our newest content, and it's coming out all the time, guys. And then obviously smash the like button. That helps us so much because we do long format, because that's what you guys need when you're new or returning to the hobby to kind of help get you up to speed. And then once you're up to speed, hopefully you'll stick around because you enjoyed the content. But if not, we appreciate you having been with us. Also, if you want to support us financially, but you can't buy this beautiful thing from the link because you're in UK or Australia or New Zealand or something like that, we have Patreon and PayPal, which is always available for anybody worldwide. Just keep in mind, we don't list any benefits, but really the biggest benefit is that you'll probably have a little easier access getting communication with us because we do comments. Just because the way the notification system is set up, it's easier for me to see them. And it's a really small pool of people still. We're talking like sub 40 people here right now. So if you're one of those, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for supporting us here on Brian Phillips RC. Our family of 6 appreciate you. And also the hobby appreciates you because we love bringing all this stuff to you so that you can sort through the plethora of crap that comes from China. Some of it is amazing and some of it is terrible. I must say, my only complaint on this plane is gonna basically be the fact that I had so much trim involved. And then I do think that people are gonna tend to run into the ground and have these splay out. So you may have to take them out, bend them back. And then like what happened to me, I mean, granted, I did nosedive into the snow. I can't believe I didn't break the prop actually.
Yeah, I know.
But honestly, I love the way this flies. If you don't want it to fly super stolly like that, just leave this off. And then also I wanna show you what I was talking about real quick and then we'll be done. These adjustments are gonna have to be made mechanically. There is a threaded rod here and you're gonna take this off and you're gonna thread it back or forth for a mechanical adjustment. And you can do that on any of the axis with the exception of flaps. Flaps are an inside adjustment and you generally don't need to do that anyway. But if your ailerons needed adjusted, you could do that. And you also notice that they programmed in differential. So that goes up higher than this goes down, and that goes up higher than this goes down. And then of course the flaps, it comes out of the box ready to rock and roll. You don't have to do any modifications to get it the way we flew it in this video. The only thing you have to do is check out the Unbox Build radio setup, and we'll go into great detail on how to charge the batteries, the differences, and all that good stuff, and then show you how to set up our new NX10, which has been great. We've had nothing but good luck with it. With the exception of transferring things from the 8 to the 10, we ran into a lot of duplicates, but that's probably because we've actually used 4 radios now, and the 4 radios kind of like overwrote themselves, and that might have been a mistake I made. I don't know. We'll figure it out someday, but there is a 250 model limit on here, and I have about 145 or 8 or something like that, real models, and it was duplicated to the point where we were over 250.
Over 250, yeah.
So you can also put as many as you want that'll fit on your external hard drive, and you can pull them off at your will. So if you would go over that 250 model limit. So anyway, guys, the Ultra Micro, or the Ultra Micro Extreme.
Yes.
Timber is amazing, just like it always has been. The turbo timber with the longer nose compared to the original timber is really cool. I like the blue. I think it looks great. It flies well. There's definitely some adjustments that I'd like to make and fly it, but as you can see, the weather is not amazing right here yet. And we were really hoping for better because it's spring. Then we want to get out there and fly like crazy. And we know you guys do too. So check this thing out in the link of the video description below. We know you guys want one. So just go ahead and treat yourself and help support Brian Phillips RC by buying from the link. Come back for more. Thanks. All right, so we're done with our Maiden and a little bit of time has passed and I want to fix my trim with a mechanical adjustment, and then we're going to try to fly again if the wind cooperates before the sun sets. So I, full disclosure, had to re-glue this. I used foam to foam. See, it broke free on the top. If they do break free like that, the foam to foam, just tack a little bit on there, and next thing you know, 2 or 3 times, and it's just going to dry up enough or air dry enough to be tacky. But since it's already attached, it's a little bit challenging to keep it open, and so you might need to put a little something in there to keep the air on it for a few minutes. Once that air gets on it, it will get to the point where it just sticks and it will stay and it will be a permanent bond, okay? So the other thing I noticed is that there was a little bit of splaying on the gear. So you may need to take these off to do this, but I'm just gonna try bending it back a little bit. And you'll notice that I noticed this popped free a little bit. It broke that plastic there. I remember that happening on my original timber. Now don't forget guys, I nosedived this into the snow. And we also flew it in the heavier snow. So I'm gonna lay this down carefully. And I'm gonna take a pair of needle nose pliers and just come in here so I can get my pressure behind it. I'm not really pushing all that hard. I'm just gonna try to snap it back in there. See, it just wants to ride the edge, but we should be okay because it's spinning free. But another thing you can do is you can brace down here and then you can fold and buy a little bit more bend back, okay? And that'll help to keep those landing gear from splaying out. Okay, so now the last thing I wanna do is don't initiate with throttle, okay? Everything is working, but AS3X isn't active, and that's important because if AS3X comes active, it might throw the position as you move and manipulate the plane, okay? So remember, 3 blades, be careful. Okay, we're gonna lay this upside down. The first thing I wanna do is, I've noticed this thing, the wingspan is just enough that it's kind of challenging to handle this because it's so light, it wants to bump away from you. Okay, so what we wanna do is we basically wanna look at the trim. You can see my trim is all the way up. Well, most of the way all the way up, but let's just say it's all the way up like that. So we wanna emulate that position, and you can look at that and it's pretty much exactly spot on, okay? And as you can see, there is, okay? So there is not a real good way to get that off, and you wanna see why? Because look where the screw is, guys.
Oh, yeah.
That's gonna be challenging. So I wanna do a mechanical trim, but I'm not sure the best way to do it. So the other thing you might be able to do is just have the same 3S fresh pack in there.
I'm just looking and it looks like you're not gonna be able to reach back there very good for a mechanical adjustment. You guys see that? Okay, so historically, when you need to make a mechanical adjustment on these UMX planes, you would just bend what's like a little over, like a U or something like that. But this thing is threaded. So really what I need to do is I need to trim it back and then adjust that. But I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna get my screwdriver through there. So what I'm gonna do is I'll take my screwdriver, I'm gonna find out what size this is by going into another one. So it's a 1.5 millimeter. And I think my plan on this one is to probably go ahead and try to go through this machine here, go through this, because there's nothing stopping me from just pressing it through all the way, okay? Now I don't know if there's any reinforcement, but I'm about to find out. You guys see what I just did there? I'm literally piercing the plane. And you're like, that seems like pretty aggressive move. Yeah, it kind of is. Excuse me. It kind of is, but you gotta get it done, okay? So that little piece of foam popped out. I'll deal with that after I land. See how it popped out there? If you're more careful, it won't pop out. But now I can get in here and I can pass that through and do what needs to be done, which is basically turn this thing out, okay? So I'm just gonna spin this out. You need to make sure you're back far. You're gonna hit that wing.
I'm trying to not block it.
Go over here. Thank you. See this, how I've spun that out now? Okay, so now that that's turned out, now it's free, okay? So now what I need to do is I need to basically know where I'm putting that back in, which is the middle hole, okay? It's threaded into that, okay? So now I'd really like to go to the inside hole to make the maximum output. So now I have to take my trim and re-trim it to the center. Okay, a little bit more. Okay, that's centered. Now, when I line this up, you can see that's gonna be a pretty drastic change. Okay. Okay, so you guys see how that thing's wanting to move? That is the linkage adapter there. It's a ball joint, okay? So it's gonna be pretty tricky to do this. Now, I had to trim way down to get that thing level, you see? And so I think what you can do sometimes that works pretty well is you will have to actually move this control horn so you can see what direction it actually moves, okay? So I'm gonna trim this. I'm gonna hold the trim and look. See, that's pulling it in a little bit. Now I'm gonna watch this. It's pulling it in. Going back to the center. So what I need to do is I need to pull this in, which means I need to actually spin this. Now in order to spin this, I'm gonna probably have to brace the linkage here, which means I gotta rest this plane in a weird spot, okay? And then I can spin this in. Boy, that thing does not wanna spin, does it? Okay, there it goes. There's half a turn. Goodness gracious, this is tricky. I just don't have a good spot to hang on to everything. So I'm gonna try to put this plane, there's just not a great place to hold it, to be honest. And it's too small for a regular plane stand, okay? So I'm gonna hold it here and I'm just gonna spin this so that I'm tightening it on. There's 3, there's 4, there's 5, there's 6, there's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I'm gonna leave it this way so it's so much easier to reattach. I'm gonna try to reattach it. You know what? I'm not gonna be able to reattach it that way. It's gonna cause too much of a differential in length. So there's 16 or 8 full turns. That's half turns, okay? Now we've already centered our trim. So now I just need to get that lined up, and then I'm gonna take and push this elevator down to the extent that I can screw that back into the hole where it came from. And all it does is just threads right in. It's no problem, it's not hard. Okay. I'm a little bit annoyed that it popped out this other side. I should have heated up the tip and pushed it through, okay? So there's gonna be a little bit of strength lost, but I'm gonna basically put some glue on there and stick that piece back in when I'm done, which I'm gonna retain right here for future use. Okay, so that should be pretty easy. Now, Now that I have that centered, you can see that's down quite a bit, okay? So now I can tell that I overshot a little bit. But that's okay, because I didn't feel like I had enough anyway. So now that I have actually established how much 16 turns, or excuse me, 16 half turns or 8, I can go back in and make my adjustment, because this thing is just too hard to eyeball, okay? And the noise you're hearing is not a big deal. That's just one of the servos trying to get something in a perfect position. So I'm gonna actually relax this. I'm gonna back it out again, and I'm gonna go back probably half again, okay? So you do have to, unfortunately, kind of screw it in there just to get it in the right position, okay? So mechanical trim is a lot harder on this plane than it's been on other UMXs. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this, and I need to go out with it, so I'm gonna back it off this time. Okay, so I'm gonna hold it up against the fuse. Yeah, it does not like that at all. It's very tricky. This would be a good time to have a second set of hands, because this is hard to do without a second set of hands. Okay, so there's 1, there's 2 out, 3, 4, 5 half turns. There's 6 half turns. We did 16, 7, and 8 half turns. So now we're exactly halfway, which should put us right where we want to be. And you guys, I show this process not because I want to waste your time, but because I want you to see what I have to go through so that you understand how I arrived at what I arrived at, okay? So there you go. So we're going to tighten this in. And this is, of course, one of the nuances of Brian Phillips RC. We actually show you how to do stuff. We don't just tell you, adjust the mechanical trim. We might after we've showed it once or twice. Okay, so now the other thing that was out of adjustment big time was the ailerons, okay? So the ailerons are gonna be a double adjustment. You can see right here, we're all the way over on the rudder. So now what I need to do is I need to look at where the rudder is, and I'm just gonna basically line that up. You guys see that? Okay. So it's basically pointed slightly to my right wing, very slightly. And I'm talking like 1 millimeter over, okay? So I'm gonna emulate that, and this one should be a lot easier because it's just right here on the outside. Okay, so I'm gonna unscrew this, and that means if I want that, okay, so if we need to move that way, now we have to center our trim, okay? So I'm gonna center it. They're centered. And it's actually about opposite what it should be, okay? So I just need to basically, I need to pull it opposite, which means I need to suck it in there. You know, probably a pretty good amount of thread count. Okay, so once this is out, now I can take my tool, and you'll see you don't have to pull off the ball joints. You could if you wanted, I guess. So I want to go in, right? I said I want to go in. There's 1 half, there's 2 halves, there's 3 halves, there's 4 halves, there's 5 halves, there's 6 halves. Okay, let's do 8. There's 7. There's 8 halves, okay? So then we can line that up. That's probably pretty close. And we may have to call that good because we're just literally gonna lose our light if we don't get out there. Let's see how we look. And then you can just screw right in. I mean, it's quite easy once you get that done. And you might wanna square up the ball joint a little bit better. And look at that, guys. Look where we are. Exactly pointed to the right just a little bit, okay? So that's what we want. That's the mechanical trim, and that's all it's about. We're gonna actually pause this and go fly, and hopefully we have a better flight, and it's calming down in a beautiful sunset. So guys, if you have questions about this, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to buy these things from the links. You'll help support our channel, Brian Phillips RC. And if you have more questions, you can also check out brianphillipsrc.com. That's our domain. You can see this is nice and dried, so we have good support there. And then our splay on the landing gear is also fixed. So just 3 small maintenance items that you may also need to do. And remember, we were using a 1.5 millimeter driver, okay? So that was super easy, and it's gonna be a lot easier when you're not filming, I promise. And yes, we used foam to foam. We have links to this. China glue would also work. Mucilage is probably a little bit too thick for this application. So that stuff's been one of our best options, and hopefully you guys can buy some of that when you're picking up your plane. So we'll be right back flying. All right, guys, we're back. We just made a couple of trim adjustments on both the rudder and elevator, and we're ready to take this thing back off. We had a little bit of splaying after our first couple flights. I crashed into the snow on our Maiden. Well, actually the second Maiden. The first, we were flying in the snow. So here goes nothing. We have a little bit of headwind, beautiful sunset, and look at this. Don't even need reverse thrust now. Okay, timer's cleared. We're at 300 milliamps, 3S, takeoff flaps deployed. Here we go. Getting in the air, absolutely no problem. Oh man, the trims are way better now, guys. Look at that. Way better, hands off. Got a little bit of roll, but that's the wind, I think. All right, here we go, guys. And just to show you, even in the lower lighting conditions, these lights will basically make this plane flyable. And we've got the sun behind us now. Absolutely gorgeous flying characteristics now. Really happy with it. Way better on the mechanical trim now. Okay, full landing flaps, let's see how it does in flat and level flight. 300 milliamp, 3S, about 30% throttle right there, guys. Getting kicked around by the turbulence, but just going in a generally straight path. A lot of rotor coming off of those big trees there. Just gonna try to keep it right above the tree line so you get that beautiful silhouette. Look at that thing turbulating though. But it just goes in a basically straight line. Okay, up. Little contrary rudder, and that thing rolls really good for not being a Timber X, let's say. And coming around and down, we're gonna go on the inside pass. And one thing I gotta say is there's just enough turbulence that you're not gonna be able to ride the lines that you'd like to ride with this plane, but it still looks really good doing it, especially up against that purple and blue. And we love bringing you guys the best in RC aviation, even if we're reviewing small planes that might not be as amazing as bigger planes. This is really fun, and it flies a lot like a big plane. And just so you guys can understand, look at this windsock, guys. This isn't even a windsock, first of all. This is actually a kite tail, and look at this. We're just gonna chill right here, guys. We're just gonna alpha right here. Look at this, guys. Just showing you, I'm not even in throttle right now. That prop is stopped, okay? Absolutely gorgeous. And then 3S is just gonna give you more power than you'll probably ever really need, but we're just gonna fly upside down with the geese. Here we go, just coming around. Geese, help me, I'm confused. Where are you? Right there you are. That is so cool. They are celebrating spring.
With 8 inches of snow.
That's right. So guys, I gotta say, the Turbo Timber Evo, when it first came out, the big one, 3 and 4S was like huge. Huge, people. And I know huge. This thing on 2 and 3S is huge. That's 75% throttle. Here's 100% throttle. We're just gonna bring it down with the wind a little bit and just show you. Look at the crazy amount of speed, but this is just not a speed demon. I installed my leading edge slats, full landing flaps here. And I'm telling you, if you want this thing to fly fast, don't put your slats on. It's gonna make a big impact. Okay, and to take off flaps now. And just kind of riding the edge, using the rudder a lot to kind of hold my heading, and my trims, now that they're squared away, is so much better. And that's even with wind, folks. Really happy with the Timber. Love the Turbo Timber 2S. And this Turbo Timber Evo is no exception, folks. You're gonna love it. It's just a real ball to fly. It flies like a big plane, but it's little. And that's one of the reasons why we love flying Ultra Micro Extremes. It's just one of my favorites. And so here we have a challenge here because my elevator appears to have stuck. We're gonna see if we can break out of it. So far, so good. We're not broken out of it. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to see if I can break it free. And now I'm gonna put it in safe. You guys see that? It's saved. It's coming back. What are the chances, right? So if you guys ever had a UMX that did that to you, I'm just gonna tell you, That is a little bit scary. But yeah, my elevator was stuck there for a minute. And just, what a great plane. It didn't even crash. That's hilarious. So what I'm gonna show you is if you ever get in a tight spot where something weird happens that you're not expecting, the first thing you can do as a pilot, and it's very hard, even as getting to be a more experienced RC pilot, it is very tempting to just freak out and throw caution to the wind and do something stupid. All I did was kept flying the plane. I was like, okay, what's it gonna do to keep that plane in the air? Yes, it walked away from me, and you'll notice I physically moved my body toward it. And if you guys ever have a UMX and you wanna set your rates, not your rates, but your throws to 95 or 97%, you'll never have one stick on you. But I left him at 100 like a dummy. Look at that beautiful landing, folks. Flies like a big plane, but it's not a big plane, okay? It's a small plane, and these ultra micro extremes are just that. They're extreme, and they're getting a lot better. But that being said, we noted a few different issues today, and that is splaying landing gear, okay, that's one of them. We had a massive trim adjustment on the elevator and the rudder. We showed you how to resolve both of those. And we also noticed at one point I nosedived. Maybe that wasn't me. I don't know. I think it was probably me. Although what happened up there was very weird. A sticking elevator is generally a death sentence for a plane, but let's just show you how to fix that. Go into servo setup, go to travel, and for each of these controls, just bring them back to like 97, okay? And I guarantee you, if you do that, you're gonna have better luck. You're probably never gonna have an issue. And I'm just gonna do it from now on because I was reluctant to do it in the Unbox build radio setup, and so I didn't, but now I got it. Okay, so also, the other thing we have in Evo that we didn't before is that beautiful bar right there. And that tells you how long you can keep flying. So let's do one more STOL takeoff. We'll try to, oh yeah, so gorgeous. I was really reserving my juice for that takeoff. I only gave about 30% throttle. Let's see if we can bring one down right at our feet. And by the way, it is turbulent as all get out, folks. So what's the last thing you wanna do with turbulent is ride the edge, because guess what? You're gonna tend to not find it. You're gonna crash. And so you saw what I did there was I just rode it until I felt like I was confident and I was close enough to get away with it. And there it is. So out of the flaps now. Guys, let's go up and fly with the ducks again. As you can see, we've got some more. These are ducks, I think. You can tell by the way they're flapping their wings. So cool. Okay, doubling back. So folks, if you want a really awesome experience, I would highly suggest getting this UMX. It's gonna be fun. You can put floats on there. It's pretty easy to put them on. Maybe someday when we have access to a better pond, we can go ahead and throw some floats on this plane. I'd like to get the Carbon Z Cub out, put some floats on that too. But as you can see, what a beautiful, almost like full-scale flight from just a little ultra micro. And you're just gonna love this thing, guys. Now, another couple things to keep in mind is when you get into these ultra micros, you need to remember they are more fragile than you might give credit for because they are EPS, not EPO. The day that we get an EPO, ultra micro is gonna be amazing. And we actually have had a few. The Ultrix, I believe, is EPO. But the thing is, they're gonna be so heavy, we're gonna have to be up to something like way higher than 3S probably. And I gotta say, I'm really impressed with the way this plane performs, really impressed with the way it looks, but I'm not really impressed with the trim. That is annoying. Is it a deal breaker? Not in my opinion. I'm not impressed with the fact that the elevator's stuck and I got lucky. So guys, take my advice, go to 97, go to 95 if you really wanna preserve things, and you'll never run into that problem. And the other thing too is, when you do crash these things and you splay out your gear, the gear have a little bit more resilience than the original one, but it's still a light duty wire. The music wire is not very thick, okay? There's our critically low warning. So I'm just gonna go way up and I'm just gonna fly downwind. Just gonna let the wind carry me with takeoff flaps deployed. Just enjoying those beautiful lights. Now I'm gonna get myself turned, full landing flaps, and I'm just gonna ride gravity down. I've got power when I need it, and there we are, guys, on the mains, and then a little bit of wind to help me. So throttle cuts on, and we are good. We got 10.8 volts on our 3S pack, and just basically, I gotta grab it because it's like taxiing back to me.
Running away.
So one thing I can say about this plane is that it is a big ultra micro, okay? But it is definitely sub 250, which means you can fly it. You don't have to worry about remote ID at all. And that's true for pretty much anything under 250. But there are some rules you're supposed to follow, and I'm just gonna let you lawyers out there figure that crap out. For me, I'm gonna fly this thing and I'm gonna love it, and I'm just not gonna tell anybody because it's awesome. And this thing is beautiful. You guys will love it too, and I hope you'll get one. If you don't have the 1.5 meter timber, I gotta say, of all the timbers that we've ever reviewed, I still probably have a favorite, and it is the 1.5 meter, okay? This thing is amazing, but it's definitely sub 250. So if you're in one of those terrible areas where you have a hard time getting permission to do things with your toys, this is for you, okay? Now I gotta say, 3S is the way to go. 2S is fine, you're gonna be okay, but the thing is, just get 3S. You're gonna want 3S. And I have a sneaky suspicion that this thing would probably do a bigger battery, because honestly, I feel like it might be a little bit on the tail heavy side, even with our battery all the way up at the front of the Velcro. Now it marks okay on the CG, and we did mark it, as you can see there. Okay, it measures perfectly the way we're flying it, but I gotta say, I think you could probably put a bigger battery in there. And you also note that I didn't Velcro the batteries. That might be something that causes a little bit more wonkiness. If you really get that thing secure, it's gonna be better, okay? But you know my predisposition against Velcro. I'm not a big fan of Velcro or hook and loop on my batteries. Okay, other thoughts. Ball links, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a cool feature. It did make this adjustment really hard right here, and you guys saw that in the video. But the thing is, if it would have been on the outside, it wouldn't have been hard. The issue is you're never gonna get that thing to be out here and still make the angle without creating a bunch of binding effect. So just ram it through and you'll be fine. You'll never know any better. It's not gonna be a problem, but heat the tip, pass it through, pull it out quick. Don't overheat, don't make the hole any bigger than you've got to. But if you heat it, you're gonna preserve the strength of the foam that then shrinks back as you pass through, okay? So remember, just lighter, heat the tip, stick it through, done. Pull it out, let it cool for a minute, and then go in and do your adjustment. Should be super easy. Now, the other thing is adjusting the splay on these it's just gonna be something we have to do. And the only way you can get around that is to basically have greasy, perfect landings all the time. And I'm gonna tell you, with this particular plane, you're gonna screw around with it. You're gonna end up doing stupid things. And if you do, and you bend the gear, don't be surprised. Also, I like the livery on this. I think it's cool, but it is very basic compared to what we experienced on the original one. And I say the original one meaning the turbo timber that has the longer nose, okay? Not to be confused with the original UMX timber, which just had the short, stout nose and two-bladed prop. So I do like the three-bladed prop. You get a little bit better ground clearance on there, but we didn't have any issues. You could ride this on the mains all day if you wanted to, and you didn't have a headwind like that.
Yeah.
Headwind is gonna play a big factor in this plane. You can fly it in the wind, but I still think the best time to fly UMXs is in the calm. You're gonna enjoy it better, and it's gonna look a heck of a lot better in it. That being said, you can fly in higher winds. This is definitely not the Sport Cub S2. If you're flying the Sport Cub in this type of wind, it's gonna be like 3 miles that way,
yeah.
Okay? And also, if you ever do find that you have a sticky elevator, or sticky anything for that matter, figure out what it's gonna do to keep the plane in the air, and just do it until it releases. So in my case, all I did was I worked with the elevator position until the plane started releasing that elevator. I don't know what I did exactly, but I know what was gonna happen is eventually it's gonna break free and I'm gonna be fine. I was. But admittedly, I probably got lucky on that, okay? Also, leading edge slats on this plane are really completely unnecessary, but totally cool. So if you put them on, I think you're gonna enjoy the stall performance better, but you're not necessarily gonna enjoy the speed performance, because I think that contributed to my elevator trim necessity, okay? That leading edge slat will also mean that under throttle, you're gonna tend to go up a little bit faster because you're producing more drag and more lift. And you can't undermine that with just trim, okay? Because there's gonna be an asymmetry, and it's just, you can't take that out without a throttle curve. Now, I don't think you need a throttle curve. Just make an adjustment with your thumb as you're flying. It's not a big deal. But just be aware, the leading edge slat is gonna create a different non-linear output as you provide throttle to the plane. It's gonna tend to lift like that, okay? What?
If somebody is a newer pilot, would you recommend that they didn't put the leading edge slat on?
It might simplify things a little bit, but also you can fly slower with the leading edge slat than you could without.
Okay.
That being said, the flaps are barn doors on this. Look how big they are, okay? I just think you have plenty to do, and you can also add that later, so it's not a big deal. As a beginner, is this better than the Sport Cub S2? That is a tough question that would be answered better by, are you flying it inside of a gymnasium? If you are, get the Sport Cub S2. If you're not, this thing might be better, but it's way more capable, and you're gonna crash it just like you will the other. The difference is this goes so much faster that when you do crash it, you're gonna tend to break.
Yeah.
So if you're a new pilot and you're gonna try to do this, keep in mind, you're gonna be getting a transmitter that's programmable. And if you know you're hooked, just get the 10, don't mess around, don't buy all the middle steps. That's what Spectrum wants you to do. And we would love it if you did, buy it from our links. The problem is you're wasting a bunch of money. Just go to what you think you want and get it and be done with it. You'll never look back, I promise you on that, okay? Now, even if you end up with some other brand of radio, an OpenTX or a Futaba, you're gonna still get bind-and-fly planes from Horizon. They just put out a lot of great planes. I promise you, you're gonna be happy with it. I bought a DX18, never looked back. And now I'm into a bunch of others, but of course we do reviews. So take them with a grain of salt on that part. Get the transmitter you think you need for next year, okay? That's the best way to do it. Otherwise, you're blowing money constantly on transmitters. Or get a great deal on a used one if you can, but you're just not gonna find that many used ones. Okay, so that being said, love the plane, love the visibility with the lights, love the fact you can do low light flights. Love the fact that it shows up okay in the sky, even though it's white and blue. I'd like to see a different color timber on the next go around, Horizon, if you're listening, because really bright yellow, something that's just different, red, you know, something totally off the wall would be cool, but I want to keep the weight down, and I know you do too. And that's part of the reason why we have a raw foam backdrop with decals, okay, except for up here, and that really does help a lot with visibility. That little black part there.
The Timber X is yellow.
The Timber X has yellow decals.
Yeah.
Yellow and green or something like that.
I think it's yellow and gray.
Yellow and silver.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful too, and it's a full-length flapper on. Inboard flaps are where it's at, guys. You're gonna get a better analog for other planes that you're gonna fly than a full-length flapper on. Flapper-ons, full-length are okay. Outboard flapper-ons, as far as I'm concerned, are probably never really that great. Now, I know you guys are gonna find issue with that on some planes. You can maybe get away with the spoiler on and do okay, but I don't think it's the way to go. Okay, so getting back to the beginner questions, if you are a beginner and this or that, the Sport Cub S would be a great choice if you have calm conditions often where you fly, or you can fly indoors. This thing is gonna carry more speed, but you can still fly with flaps deployed and fly it slow inside. But this thing is quite a little bit bigger than the Sport Cub S2. We're getting some regular warnings now because my battery is chiming at me. So I'm gonna cancel that. So at the end of the day, are you gonna like this plane? I think you're gonna really like it. However, when you start talking budget to buy this and real expensive batteries and stuff that you'd be putting into the 1.5 meter, the full size Turbo Timber Evo, I think a lot of people are still gonna benefit from the bigger plane, but you have to have the environment to fly it in. Yeah. You're gonna have the great lighting, you're gonna have the great flight performance, you're gonna have Safe Select if you want it, and AS3X by default, okay? And if you're flying on the same transmitter, then you're gonna have all the best of both worlds, but it is a big plane. The timber is big. That's one of the biggest drawbacks on the Evo, is that it is big and the tail is tall, so it takes up a lot of room. But I still think this thing is gonna meet the need for so many people that just need a front yard, backyard, you know, schoolyard flyer, and they don't wanna run into problems on remote ID, which, by the way, I wouldn't worry about it, guys. Don't worry about it. X-Jet, I love you, man, but just relax. It's not that big a deal. We're gonna get this worked out. See, the difference is here, what we do when we have a problem with the government is, I gotta stop talking. Anyway, we'll get back to that one later. But Bruce, you're great. I love your videos, but you're just scaring a lot of people off. At the end of the day, things are gonna get worked out. Don't worry about it, guys. Seriously, keep flying, keep loving the hobby, keep getting the planes you like. You're not gonna regret it, I promise you that. There's gonna be something that comes through, I promise you that. We know some things. Anyway, that's all I got for now. You're gonna be happy when you hear about it. That's all I'm gonna say. And yes, this Turbo Timber Evo is sweet. So buy one from the links, guys. Long video, lots of detail, but I want you guys to have the no BS truth from Brian Phillips RC. Here, we showed you 3 or 4 little problems, but we also showed you that in the end, this thing is amazing and you'll love it. So get one. Thanks for watching, guys. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look at this. We finally have the UMX Turbo Timber Evo. Yep, that's right. It's amazing. This thing flies on 3S or 2S. And yes, I chose to install the leading edge slat there, but just want to point out one detail. If you guys are getting this and you're used to flying on 300 milliamp 3S, one thing for you to remember is that this thing uses JST connectors, and they are offering now a 2S with JST connector, and you don't need the weird charger adapter. You just need an adapter to go to JST into your charger, okay? Because you've got a regular Hextronics 2S lead. So just wanted to show that off. If you need the old style, don't forget you have a special connector for that. Now today, we have an extra special opportunity to fly in a late spring, early spring snow. And it is absolutely gorgeous. If you want to just go up there and give them a shot of that. We don't generally fly in the snow and rain, except for when we kind of have to. And this is absolutely gorgeous, so we couldn't pass it up. And yes, I did just like 2 minutes ago clear a very small runway, but you could put floats on and fly in the snow. We do have floats, we may try it, we'll see. For now, we're just gonna take off. This thing comes with flaps, safe, AS3X, all that good stuff, but I gotta get going before the ice builds up on the wings. Camera crew needs to probably come down. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, tons of power. Tons of power, 30% throttle. Here's my full landing flaps. Look at that thing in there. That is so gorgeous and so cool. And it is not dead calm. It may look like it from the snow, but that would be a misnomer. Look at the weight from the wheels. I might need to go do a barrel roll just to get rid of it. 3S gets you going, guys. And yes, the CG is listed in the manual. I would suggest that you look into it, but I feel like we just probably got a little bit extra weight on our tail wheel. But how gorgeous is this? The extra weight on the wheels is making it kind of different flying, I can tell you that. Okay, out of the flaps altogether. Obviously the timber is capable of doing all the stuff you want and more, but we are resisting very heavy snow. These flakes are huge, folks. Absolutely gorgeous. So we hope that this plane and this flight will be something that we can supplement along with a beautiful flight as well, because I think this plane deserves perfect conditions. But even if you don't have perfect conditions, guys, this thing will do it all day long. Full landing flaps now. Lots of pitch up. I feel like we had tons of pitch adjustment, elevator correction in our flaps. Camera crew, I need you to come up one step if you can, so I can try to shoot a landing if it'll do it. Okay, full landing flaps here. We're just gonna bring it in if we can get it past. Oh, whoop, there it is. Okay, so first things first, I did put a flap over my scroller because the last time I ran my DX8 in the snow, I did end up running with a little bit of an issue on there, so I'm just trying to avoid it. And we're gonna hand launch it this time after I knock that heavy snow. It just packs like crazy, this stuff does. And look at that tail. That's why it's flying tail heavy, because it is. Okay, all right, we're gonna take off and fly in the bull now because it's absolutely gorgeous. Hand launch this time. take off flaps, a little bit of throttle, and just give her a toss. Oh yeah, way better. Camera crew and I are just gonna make our way across the slick driveway. This is some thick snow, guys. We don't get a lot of snow in March in Iowa, but we do get some snow occasionally.
Where do you want me to be so you can see?
That is so sweet looking, guys. Oh man. I'm gonna stay back behind the edge just to keep the snow off of the transmitter. And we do have telemetry, so we know right where we are on battery voltage. You may notice I'm being a little bit tame with this. It almost looks like a 2S flight, but you gotta remember we're gaining weight all through this flight because the snow is thick. And if you guys want a plane that you can fly, you can turn on safe, there's safe, let go of the sticks, let go of the sticks, even in the terrible conditions, and it just does it. Okay, out of safe. Definitely feeling a little bit of a trim issue on the tail now. Try to get that out of there. We'll see. Full landing flaps just so we can slow down even more. What a beauty, guys. I mean, who else could you take out and fly in this type of weather? This is some bad weather, guys. Like, I'm gonna be out plowing it with my tractor here in a few minutes. And this is the kind of snow that you can pack into a snowball perfectly. And if you know what I'm talking about, it's heavy, really heavy. Oh, and I did opt to put the leading edge slats on. So if you guys are wondering about that, you can see how we did it in our Unbox build radio setup. There's 1 minute left on our 5. Camera crew, one step back toward me. There you go. Just get back a little bit further and then you'll be out of the snow. We had to adapt our camera gear a little bit today for this flight so that we could see this thing in the heavy snow. So hopefully the camera doesn't get saturated too bad with too much snow. But guys, we love filming these things in these cool environments like this. Boy, it just really likes to roll like that, doesn't it? Let's see if I can do a nice clean roll. Oh yeah. Let's try flat spin if it'll do it. Not quite that direction, we'll try again. There is so much precip, guys, this is nuts.
9, 8.
Okay, and then out, it just recovers like without any effort. 3, 2, 1. 300 milliamp, 3S, 30C. Nothing too terribly fantastic for battery, just doing just fine up there. And this plane will fly in wind, and it will fly. And guys, look at this thing whipping around here. It looks calm because of the snow is so heavy. Do you guys see that flag? Look at the tail moving around. It is definitely not calm. But if you guys have never experienced flying in snow, it's really fun, but just do your best to try to keep that transmitter out of the moisture if you can. Particularly the scroller wheel. I just took a piece of tape, doubled it up over the little scrolly part, and we'll show you that here in a second. But I mean, it's so peaceful. Let's show you what it looks like. This is the snow I haven't cleared. I probably won't be able to bring the landing in, so I'm gonna go out of the flaps altogether. I'm just gonna show you here, I'll bring it in real slow. And there you go. So I knew it was probably gonna tip over, and I just did a little flapper to keep most of the snow off of my scroll wheel. But you guys can see this stuff is the kind that you can just pack up into a tight ball like this. And it is really good for snowball fights, but it's really bad for tires and CG. Look at it building up all over this. This is heavy. This is heavy stuff for a small plane. But let's show you the stall characteristics real quick. We'll actually just go right here and try to take off that way. It's so cool to be able to do this in the snow, but it's also kind of annoying because I really want to get this thing out and show it to its full potential. So full landing flaps coming in. Control surfaces are all working. Full throttle. And you can see she gets off the ground like with no hesitation. I could have done it even quicker if I wasn't so heavy with those wet, messy wheels. And I'm definitely fighting a lot of wind. It's going crosswind, and you guys probably can't tell, but these snowflakes are so dense that it dampens what would be the otherwise wind. Sometimes you get that light snow and it will just waft around in all directions. This stuff is heavy.
I think it's like 9 gusting to the upper teens, lower 20s maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing.
It's pretty windy.
cornhole and back around. Working with the snow there. Let's see if we can do another pass here, right in close. We'll just kind of be Johnny on the spot on the throttle. That's a 50% pass, and then getting out here over the bowl. A lot of turbulence today. But man, it is so cool. What a joy to be able to fly this thing. Full landing flaps. Guys, we have so much more coming for you on Brian Phillips RC. We hope you've enjoyed the ride with us. We sure have enjoyed putting it together. There's definitely some highs and lows involved, especially behind the scenes. But the thing is, this experience has been really good, and we appreciate you guys being here to support us. If you want to help support us financially, beyond just watching the videos and liking them, thumbs up, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and the occasional super thanks, which we do get once in a while. Pretty cool. Thanks, guys. You can buy these planes right from the video description below. There's a link that'll take you right to Horizon's website, and they'll know that we sent you there, and they'll give us a little thank you for each of those planes that get sold, and batteries and transmitters, all that jazz. So if you just can't buy this plane, maybe you've already got it bought, you've got the last version, not quite ready to pull the trigger, there are so many good alternatives if you're not into the UMX line. But I gotta say, guys, sub 250, you know, anybody can fly this in their front yard. You don't have to worry about the FAA coming guns drawn, because we are sub 250 on this. We're actually about 150 grams all up, or 144 maybe.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
And we do show that in the Unbox build radio setup. I'm curious to see how much weight we've gained. Look how thick this snow is. This is incredible, guys. I'm just a little concerned I'm gonna screw up my transmitter. This thing is just going and going and going and going and going and going, full landing flaps. Let's see if we can take a landing the other way. I'm gonna have to go out this way.
I'll stay right up against the door.
Yeah. Take a really wide approach. I'm in landing flaps already, really forcing the nose down a lot. Okay, here we go. Whoa! And as you can see, because it's so dang light, we don't tend to have a lot of breakage, which is really cool. So guys, I've got 25% left on here, but I'm just like nervous. We just got this NX10 and I don't want to break it, but I am so excited for this thing. It's such a great flying little plane, and we have put it in some terrible circumstances here. So yes, you could probably take this thing and put some floats on and really enjoy it. But honestly, when the precip is coming down, look how much is built up on this. It's not the kind that just blows off.
Oh.
Watch this, guys. See this? That's what's keeping the camera angle clear. We have a clear piece of something on top of it.
Snowball on top of the camera.
So this whole process has been a little bit challenging in the snow. So hopefully we'll get you guys another shot without snow, or maybe after the snow stops, because this thing looks so good and flies so well. And I can tell just from flying it in these terrible conditions, if it does it in these terrible conditions, think how amazing it's gonna do it when it's a calm evening, got a beautiful sunset, the birds are chirping, and it's just gorgeous. It's gonna be amazing. So we can't wait to share that with you, and hopefully we'll have it right now after this video concludes. But if you're curious about the radio setup, the Unbox build radio setup is kind of a misnomer on these UMXs, but we do go into a little bit of detail on how to charge the batteries and all that sort of stuff if you're new to the hobby. So we'll help you along the way. And if you guys don't know what you're doing and you're brand new, or you're just getting back to the hobby, we'll help you figure out all the terminology. The house just pooped on my wife. It was hilarious. So anyway, guys, we appreciate you being here, part of the Brian Phillips RC experience, and we hope you guys will be back. Don't forget to click the bell for notifications if you're subscribed. If you're not, subscribe, and then definitely like the videos. It helps with the long format. YouTube does not like long format. Make no mistake, they like short, attention-getting, you know, things. And this is not short. But the thing is, this is an awesome plane, and we want to show you how it is in real life. Oh, real quick, top loading, just like the previous one. And I'll show you where my battery was, okay? And I made a little tray for that. I'm gonna just quick cover that back up, keep the snow out. And very, very cool plane, and awesome lights, very easy to see, and definitely like the way it flies, but I definitely wanna see this thing with no snow. So guys, stay tuned, so much more from Brian Phillips RC. Thanks for watching. YouTube, we have another box. This one's super exciting and super new. Not sure what to expect on the box, but we do sort of know what's coming on this one, so we're super excited to be bringing it to you, and you guys are gonna love it. So here is nothing. Oh boy. You know you guys like them. The Ultra Micro Extreme Turbo Timber Evo. This is the new latest and greatest. We cannot wait to see it. These little UMX planes, this has been one of the best planes from Horizon in the UMX lineup. And we've had some really good ones lately, especially now that we're getting 3S capable. And this is gonna be no exception. It's gonna be amazing, and we can't wait to bring it out into the not darkness. But for the moment, let's go ahead and open it up. And yes, of course, as you can see, the optional floats here on this image. And this is how you get them. This is one of the reasons why we love these planes, is because the setup is just so dang easy. We have leading edge slats here, or slats if you prefer. And they can be glued on if you so choose. And then you also have, right here, you've got floats. Then you'll have some adapters there. Now the cool thing is, it looks like this case might be big enough to actually put floats inside the box. So I'm gonna lay these things out of the way, and camera crew is gonna keep me accountable. So don't forget to stick those back in there.
Okay.
Now, if you're getting this plane, just remember, you may need a different battery than what you've used in the past, and we're gonna show you that here in a second. Now, I'm not saying you'll have to use a different battery than you've had in the past, but you may want to, because this is capable of 3S and 2S, whereas the original Ultra Micro Timber was actually a 2S only platform. And it was amazing at 2S, okay? So this is just gonna be the latest and greatest. Okay, just gonna undo that. So it's very simple. Keep your tape if you think about it, and that's gonna give you something to go in and protect it in the future. And boy, I love the way these things look. What a beautiful, look how huge the wings are. That is amazing. These Ultra Micro Extremes are just absolutely gorgeous, and they're not just gorgeous because they look cool. They're gorgeous because they fly cool. Look how good this is. I cannot wait. Look at that. The nose is really long, like that real turbine would be. And I'm noticing though, that my exhaust port, is this one kind of turned a little bit? No, it's not. It just was an optical illusion. But look how sweet that is. 3-bladed prop, and yes, top loading battery, like we have come to expect on turbo timbers at this point. Lift up and out, and that's a new trick too. So obviously magnetic attachment for the canopy, or not the canopy, but the front. And then they've got this. Of course, we're gonna cut that off in mere moments. And then there is a JST connector. And so guys, that's what I wanted to talk to you about briefly as we get into this build a little bit further. When I say build, I use the terminology super loosely because it's really not a build. It's more of just an unbox and a radio setup, which we're gonna do in mere moments. But I'm gonna cut this thing off. Every little bit of help in weight arena helps. Look at this, Spectrum 1208B. It's a 215, or excuse me, 2150 kV. I was gonna say 1215, it's not right. So that's a pretty good size motor. You're gonna get lots of power out of it. Now, if you're looking for the manual, lift this out of the box. You don't have to do that every time, but we have a nice unfolded manual here. And if you guys are new to the game, or you're just coming back to the game, you're in the exact right spot here on Brian Phillips RC. We're gonna help you get the latest and greatest technology and get the most out of it by showing you exactly how to set stuff up. So these are little protective covers. I recommend hanging on to those too, because you can keep the foam from sticking to itself inside the bag. Okay, so we're just gonna peel this off. And we've got the manual inside of here. Camera crew is gonna pop that out real quick while I deal with the tape. And these are wonderful carrying cases. There is room for batteries. And you may have noticed that there was a JST plug on the battery lead, as opposed to the previously used 2S micro pH connector. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second as well, because you can still get that micro pH connector. And it looks like this on the 2S lead. You're gonna have this micro pH connector like that. Okay, so if you're familiar with that, And this is the new style on the 3S with a JST plug. Now there is also a 2S coming out that should be available here real shortly that's gonna have, I don't know if it's got the balance lead as well. I would imagine it does, because you do have to have that balance lead to charge this one. And then on this one, you have the 3 wires that come out. So that is both the balance lead and the discharge lead, okay? So if you get that, you need to make sure you get the right charger adapters or discharge adapters. And we've talked about this a number of times with the UMX pits. Same thing, guys. The JSTs are way more capable at delivering current because they just have more space that contacts as opposed to the micro PH 2S connections. So now that's not to be confused with the micro, this is not a micro PH, that is a Hextronics connector. This is a female, well, it's actually male, micro PH connector. Okay, so it's a weird looking connector. This is the micro PH to JST adapter. So that's what you're gonna need if you're using your original E-flite packs and they're still working, which I'd be surprised if they do. They just don't last that long. And this goes in there like that, okay? So then you can fly this thing on the newer style 2S. Now these are in smart branded Spectrum color code, but they are not smart. There is currently no smart chips on batteries less than 600 milliamp hours, I believe. So if you guys are looking for smart on these, unfortunately, they just don't exist yet because the chip is bigger. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. When you look at any of these batteries, they all have the same size chip and it's about that big, okay? So if you had a chip that's that big, it's just gonna really add a lot of bulk to a small pack. And for that reason, we don't yet have smart batteries, but they do look like they could get confused as smart. And I want to be the first one to point out that we are not trying to trick anybody. I don't think Horizon is either, but it could be tricky. I mean, it could be tricky. If you saw this, you would think that's smart. It's got the same color scheme. Well, everything from Spectrum is this color scheme. So it's not meant to be a trick, guys. Just be aware. This is a Hextronics 3S plug, and this is a JST. Now, why does that matter? Because in order to charge this on the latest rendition of chargers, I'm gonna show you, we have 2 different styles of charger cables, and let's go over here and talk about it. You're like, Brian, you're here to do an unbox on a new plane, and you're talking about chargers. Yes, this is what we do, because people need help with this stuff. So if you guys are new to the hobby and you don't know what the heck you're doing, we're gonna help you figure it out. This is an adapter, you need it, okay? To charge, which one? The 2S, because it has this micro PH connector. And you're like, well, what's wrong with this? Can't you just stick that in the charger? No, and here's why. Because you have 3 wires, okay? So you have 1 cell here, and then you have 1 cell that's in series here. So if somebody was so motivated, you could actually wire 1 at a time and charge 1 cell at a time. But you're not gonna do that because nobody does that. So this is what you use to discharge, because you take the output from this series of batteries and you fly your airplane. So that's why this output charger, output cable only has 2 pins. There's 1 missing in the middle, okay? Oh. So that's the discharge side of thing, meaning you're plugging into your battery, plugging into your airplane. So then here, this is gonna plug in, whoops, just throw that anywhere. This is gonna plug into your micro PH adapter. And you're like, what is all this crap going on here? Well, what happens is you have to take the outer 2 most wires and go into something that's gonna go into one of these current chargers, okay? So this is the S155. You don't need the S2200 yet, but you can get it if you want. It'll go up to 6S, but this of course is 2S, so you don't need this charger for this, okay? You can't, in fact, charge that big battery on this charger, even though you have that big plug, which is called an IC5. This is called an IC3, and look what's in my hand, an IC3. So this is actually going to give you a place to plug this in. Then you can take the Hextronics 2S plug here, which looks a lot like this plug, except it's Hextronics instead of micro PH. Then you can plug it in. And yes, black on black does make it hard to see. But look, all of a sudden we have data. And we can charge if we wanted to by pressing this button, and then we can set it up, okay? See how it says 0.3 amps? If you want to use the up and down, of course I can't really see. then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up, make sure it's 2S. I'm going to click into this and I can change that value. Okay. Now I want to talk real quick about this. If you're at 0.6 amps, that means that, look, this is a 300 milliamp hour. Milliamp hour means 1,000th of an amp consumed per hour. So 300 milliamp hours, doing some simple math would tell you that's about 1/3 of an amp hour. Okay? So over here, if you type in 0.6, that means you're charging at 2C, okay? So that would be charging at 2C. And if you look on some of these batteries, they'll tell you how fast you can charge them. Now that one's not going to show you, but this one might. Max charge rate 3C, 3.9 amps. Okay, that'd be 1,300 times 3. 1,300,000th of an amp. So that'd be 3.9. Okay? So that's just a quick way to do the math. And then all you have to do is once you've set it, so let's say I want to charge it at 1C, which would be the conventional charge technique for a smaller battery. And I'll scroll down to start and press it. You can see this one's charged pretty much. And you can press down or up. And don't mind the saturation. This looks very dark in camera, but it's actually not. It's just because it's very hard to see that very bright screen with all the black that's going on there, okay? So now, you can use the S2200, but you don't need 200 watts per channel to charge this little dinky battery. This is one single 55 watt channel, okay? So that means you can charge one battery at a time at 55 watts. Unless, of course, you make a balance board and you do something more sophisticated like this, which we have done millions of different charger plugs and things like this over the years. We literally have hundreds of adapters that we've both built and adapters that we have acquired, whether they're given to us as part of a demo on a plane or we buy them on our own. So here we go. Now, if you want to talk about 3S, 3S is even simpler. And for that reason, I always recommend 3S on that plane or any plane that supports it, because here's the thing. You can always resist the compulsion to put more power to the throttle, but you can't add more power to the throttle than you're ever going to produce with a 2S. So you're going to limit yourself with a 2S, and you might want a little lighter flight, but admittedly, you're talking about a super microscopic difference in weight between this and that. Now, it's not nothing, but it's just almost nothing. It is like a rounding error, okay? So here's the thing. 300 milliamp hours is the same capacity, but it's just got 3 cells instead of 2. So you'll notice that instead of having 3 total wires like this, it's got a 4th. Okay, so that's 1 cell. Then this is another cell, and then this is the 3rd cell. And so this is called the balance lead, but this is the discharge lead. The discharge lead actually goes into the plane, and you'll note that you don't need an adapter like this because you've already got your output in GST, okay? This again is not a smart battery. It doesn't auto discharge. You do have to set up your data when you plug into a charger, okay? Now, if you happen to just charge this 2S, which you can see it's done, and you can see your voltages at 4.18 and 4.2 and all this, and it's just kind of working on getting everything balanced, then you can see what it looks like right there. Okay, so now I'm going to stop it. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can show you how to stop it. You can either stop it like that, or you can just start unplugging things. Now, one thing I've noticed about doing this is that when you are working with these plugs, they are very hard to pull out, okay? Because there's not much material to hang on to. So get in there and pull by this plug. Don't pull by the wires, you will break it. These pants can come off if you want, and you can get in there and you can actually work inside of here and fix solder joints or rebuild connectors. You can hold this. I'm just gonna show you how this works, guys. Look, see? And the smart lead isn't even landed, okay? That middle lead, that middle plug, that's the smart data transfer, but you don't need it because it doesn't do anything on this application because it's not actually a smart battery, okay? Now I'm just gonna pop this back together. There's a couple of different ways you can do it, but I just like to hold on to it and then snap it in, okay? So we've answered a lot of questions there that you guys might have. We're gonna talk about the other battery quick. This is a 3S, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just use this little adapter so that I can go from JST to an IC3. Now you could also do an EC3, on this adapter and it would work just fine. And the reason it would work fine is because we don't really care about the data lead, and an EC3 is the same exact cable as an IC3, connector as an IC3. Now, if you look really close, you can see we are dealing with almost charged. So we'll just pull back a little bit. We'll go start, and then we can go and look at what the charge rate is. The charge rate's already correct, so I'm just gonna press and hold this. I'm just gonna tap it, and there it starts. Okay, so now in looking at the way that this discharge is gonna work, now it's already done. I've noticed something recently, and that is when you have a battery that persistently doesn't wanna charge to 100%. I had one of my 2200 batteries, one that we don't use on a super regular basis. It was 100C, and it was going to like 80%. I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't charge. And I'm like, it's a Gen 2, so it's not like I can just, must have been a 30C. Either way, I just had the smart lead, so it's Gen 2. And I learned a trick. And that is, if it likes to go to full charge and you miss that little bit at the end, that means you're charging it too fast to hit that last little bit, because it thinks it's done and then cuts off. So if you charge at a slower rate, so like instead of 2.2 amps on a 2200, you might charge at 1.1 amp or half a C. And it will have a longer duration of charge sequence so it doesn't overshoot. You can also do it at a third of a C or even smaller, and then just do a slow charge. You only have to do that a couple of times, and then it should discharge during a flight, and you can put full power to it and it'll charge back up, and you'll have better experience with it. That's just something I've noticed. So obviously this is now charged, and you can just more or less not discard this, but you can put it aside because you don't need it to actually fly the plane. You just need it to charge it. Now for this type of battery on a 2S, you do need this adapter for flight. So if you're going to only fly on 2S, you might consider the possibility of just leaving that one in your plane and buying another one to put next to your chargers. So we'll link to all those different connectors and apparatus. So you've got basically, at the end of the day, you're gonna have 3 batteries to choose from. There'll be a 2S, we'll probably have one link that'll just link to the search results for this size. And then there'll be a link for an adapter, and a link for an adapter for charging, and a link for an adapter. And you're gonna have to look through and figure out which one it is you need. And that's gonna get you guys set. So like I said, if you're new to UMX Ultra Micro Extreme, these are hobby grade planes in very small packages. That's why I love them. They are not just toy grade. The difference between this and some of the other competitive offerings is that you're gonna get a very good flying system. It's gonna be, it's not gonna be like one of these where you can just throw it into the wall and it's good. This is gonna be a little different flying experience. They're still fun, and you can run into a wall with them and they won't break as easy. But the thing is, because that's EPS, it's much lighter. And this is an EPO, softer EPO. And so what happens is, if it's EPS, then that means it's gonna be harder. You're not gonna be sitting there bending this. It's gonna break, okay? But the trade-off is weight. This thing is way lighter and it's way more stiff, which means you get a more lifelike experience. And as you get bigger in radio-controlled airplanes, the more your lifelike experience becomes, okay? So these are amazing planes. Also, I just want to point out, these are not squishy tires. They are hard. They look like they're squishy, but they're not. We have been griping about that for a while, and we have been encouraging, however, we can encourage the companies that we work with to explore options for soft tires. But on these Ultra Micros, we don't tend to have a lot of problem because it's a light plane and they're easier to land. Look at this, we have support back here. We did not have that originally, and these things would dig into the foam here badly, okay? So look, 1, 2, 3, 4 big screws. That's awesome. They're allowed to splay out. There's good strength here. This is gonna be the first thing to pop off. If they do, you can snap them back on by hand, put a drip of CA in there, and they will hold for a long time. You also notice that there's little LEDs. If you're gonna do a lot of wet flying or water flying, I recommend putting just a little coating of CA over that. Now make sure it's foam safe if you intend to get it anywhere near this foam, okay? Because this EPS will melt badly with foam, non-foam safe glue. So if you get BSI stuff, it's the white cap, as opposed to a pink or purple cap. That's gonna be a non-phone safe. And I believe blue might also be, but just make sure it says low odor or foam safe. Okay, low odor is usually code word for foam safe. Same thing here. You got really good lights on this plane, but I wanna give you guys a look at what they look like without being blinded by the saturation of the flashing light. So you can see what that looks like. And then they used clear covers. Now I like the white ones better because they look better, but I like the clear because I can see what's going on if I have a problem with these long throw linear servos. Also, I want to point out we have ball link on all of the little surfaces, which is super cool. And look how thick and robust this rudder is. We don't typically see thick and robust rudders. It is a tape hinge, not a pinch hinge. And look how just everything is very heavy duty for being small. I know heavy duty is sort of a misnomer on ultra micro extremes just because they're so dang small. But the thing is, I love how well refined these things have gotten. And I also love the fact that they do come with leading edge slats or slats. So slats, of course, as you guys know, are gonna be a fixed thing on this plane, okay? So if you're interested in, of course I left this out. This is what's so nice about these kits, is that you get this little transport case, and they really do work well. But just keep in mind, sometimes when you install accessories, they may not always fit with the accessories installed. So if you put the landing gear on, you should be good. But if you put floats on, you may have some complications there. So I like to keep all the spare parts for the particular aircraft in the box. But then what I want to do is I want to show you, if you decide to put these leading edge slats on, then you're going to open the bag. Just be real careful, that tape will catch them on the way out. So I like to slide them out like this, and they are very, very, very light duty, okay? See this? That's the first thing to break on this plane right there, because it's very thin. It's like a paper plate, you know, like a foam plate, okay? I wish these things were more of a permanent fixture that could be taken on and off at will, but you just can't. Now they're gonna recommend that you use CA, and if you look at the shape of that, you can tell what direction the front is compared to the back. It's very obvious because this is gonna be pointing forward, okay? Now all that does is it makes a leading edge separation like this. So you have like a small wing on the front of the wing. Now this is what we call a fixed slat, as opposed to, you know, like an active leading edge droop, or sometimes they call them a leading edge flap that comes down. You know, like you'll see that on some big airliners. And then sometimes they have a slat that slides out hydraulically in front. So in this case, this would be on a real plane, they would usually be operated by gravity, would pull them out. And then on some planes, I don't think they really do a lot of fixed slats on planes. But I suppose there's always a first time for everything. Generally, they're gonna fall out under stall conditions and then stop the separation at the leading edge, which means that you can fly into a higher alpha configuration. You can get better stall performance, which means you get off the ground quicker, short takeoff or landing. That's what stall stands for. And this, make no mistake, is a stall plane, okay? You can take off in inches with this plane. Okay, so one of the most important things we do on this channel is radio setup, which we are gonna do. And if you're waiting for that, just stay tuned a little bit longer. We're gonna actually glue our leading edge slats on right now. And I'm not gonna use CA, even though CA would probably be the easiest way to do it. I like China glue. And so China glue comes in many forms, okay? One of our favorite products for a long time was mucilage. But mucilage has gotten to be in a real pain for us. And it might be because I bought it a long time ago and it dries out. But I'm just gonna tell you, if you guys want good China glue, we have found a number of different companies that make good China glue. One of which is Foam to Foam. One of which is another product that's in a white bottle. We're gonna show this because it's a Horizon product. And if you're ordering this plane, you may wanna get some of this because it's in stock. It's a good value, it lasts quite a while. And look at this, it's an aluminized tube, so it resists light. And look, there's health and safety warnings. So you actually know that it's bad for you instead of just, you know, having a white label and assuming you can eat it. Oh, that's one of the reasons I don't like it, is that it poops out sometimes when you first open. So the camera crew is gonna get in position. I'm gonna grab a Q-tip to make life easy. In fact, I'm gonna grab 3. And then we're gonna come over here and we're just gonna glue these on right now. Okay guys, so the easiest way to do this, in my experience, is to use a Q-tip, like I said. I'm gonna grab this little bit of glue that pooped out right when we opened it. And my biggest drawback on this type of glue is that aluminum tube, when you squish, it tends to squeeze out more than you want, okay? So what I try to do is I'll try to put something to catch it, but it's not coming out, so I think we're good. And I'm just gonna take a little bit of this glue and I'm just gonna go like that and just dip it all in there. Now this is gonna be a little heavier than a CA would be because a CA is gonna have a solvent carrier and that's gonna allow it to actually flow like water. But we're not using it in that application. So you're like, why did you go to this right side? Just because I gotta do both sides at some point, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. And you're like, all you do is you spread it on there and just leave it? Aren't you gonna stick it on there? No, you actually wanna let it cook off. And what I mean by cook off is you're gonna, like, see this? Watch this. I'm gonna squeeze, 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 squeeze. There's a little bit of air in there. There it comes. Oh yeah, good stuff. Okay, so now I'm gonna lay this down. Now, this product called Foam to Foam has been really good in our experience, but what you do is it's a contact adhesive, so it works really good for this type of thing. And this is incidentally what they use generally to assemble aircraft when they build halves. See, this is all molded in one big piece here on the bottom, but on some of the bigger planes, they mold 2 halves, and then that allows them to have an easier time getting wires and things like that down the length of the fuselage. And it also is because the way that the molds are built, they have a die, and that die fills half at a time, then they have to be assembled. Well, what happens is this stuff, this China glue, and we say it because of its origin. It's from China, okay? So it's China, I know China. So that stuff works good. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let that cook off, meaning just be exposed to air. And then this was the first one we did, and that was the first side we did. So now all I have to do is just stick them together, and they will probably pretty much just immediately pop on there. I am just gonna pop this canopy on here real quick. Cockpit cover, whatever you wanna call it, the hood, okay? So now this thing needs to line up pretty close to these little arrow parts. And you're like, that looks tedious. It is kind of challenging to get it, in my experience. So once you let that stuff cook off, it is gonna be like super quick to do it this way. And all you gotta do is get the outside 2 lined up and then just go and press them. And you're gonna be done, folks. Now, if you did that with CA, you'd have to put some kicker in there. And then what's so nice about this, like that's already on there, guys. So very easy, very clean. If you do CA, you gotta work fast. And the thing is, if you do CA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, and then you leave these naked, I would take kicker and I would put kicker, 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 and then stick it. But you gotta get it right. You can't get it wrong. If you get it wrong, it's gonna stick in the wrong spot. And keep in mind, this needs to be foam safe because this EPS is notoriously bad for melting with non-foam safe. Once you come around and show them from this angle, right behind my left ear. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna show you what I'm doing. I'm kind of using this to support it, and I'm gonna just roll this in. You see how it's got a bend to it? That's okay, the bend's not gonna hurt anything as long as you don't go totally tight. See, I'm just line up all those spots and just stick it down. Okay, now that it's down, it's still loose, and I'm just gonna press it here, and then I'm gonna press it here. I'm gonna actually hold by the back of the fuse. I'm gonna press it here, I'm gonna press it here, and I'm gonna press it here, and I'm kind of barely reaching. You can see that just makes this little gap, and then there's actually 2 little wings. There's a little leading edge wing, and then there's the main wing, and then there's flaps and ailerons back here. Which, by the way, if you didn't already know, this has inboard flaps and outboard ailerons, meaning outboard versus inboard. Then we have a huge elevator, and we have a huge rudder, and we have a nice, robust vertical stabilizer. And look how stiff this is. I'm gonna hold the plane. You see this? It's just really sturdy. It's gonna fly a lot like a bigger plane, okay? Now, we're done with that. That was pretty easy peasy. And so now all we need to do now is go ahead and go through radio setup. All right, so generally on UMX planes, we don't worry a lot about CG because they just work. But I am gonna go ahead and measure this out and just show you with calipers. So 28 plus or minus 4, which is also known as 24 to 32. So we're gonna go 24 to 32. Okay, so 24 to 32. Now, in order to mark this, I'm gonna go under the bottom and I'm gonna go from the leading edge, not the leading edge slat. I'm gonna make a dent out where I can reach to it. There's a dent. Then I'm gonna go on the other side. I'm gonna go out about the same, about midway through that E-flite. Okay, you'll notice it's pretty much on the spar. Now I'm gonna go 32. What? 28 plus or minus 4 millimeters? That is a huge range.
Yeah, it is.
Good lordy lord. Did I say that right? 32?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, 32. Okay, so there's 32, close enough. There's our mark. And I'm just making a mark and we'll highlight this for you so you guys can see on the model. Okay, now don't depend on that tape being exactly in the same position 100% of the time. It may not be. But what I can do now is I can take and now highlight where the marks are, but I'm gonna probably, yeah, I'll use black because see what I'm gonna have a hard time reaching. So I'm just gonna go like this, ding, ding, okay? And then I'm just gonna come over here and go ding, ding. So now we have our CG marks marked and we can test the center of gravity if we're in any question. So we'll just put those calipers over here to be out of the way. Okay, so what an absolute gorgeous plane. And wait till the lights come on. All right, guys, so now we're gonna set up a radio setup. So the first thing you have to do when you set up radio, we're gonna be using an NX10. Don't be frightened or alarmed by that. You can do the exact same setup virtually if you wanna use an NX6 or an NX8. Okay, so we got an acro here. I'm gonna click, I'm gonna go cancel them back. Do we have a new plane on here? I can't remember.
I don't think we do.
So I'm just gonna go to add new model and just pretend like we went to acro. And actually, we'll just do this. We'll just, hold on, I'll just delete this. Sorry guys. System setup, disconnect. And then I'm gonna go to model utilities and I'm gonna create a new model. And it's gonna be an acro, okay? So now it takes a second, especially when you have hundreds of models in here. Now there is a 250 model limit, regardless of how much memory you have on your SD card. So just in case you're wondering. And the NX10 is something that's new for us, so we're still learning if there's any differences. We haven't seen a lot of differences other than the sliders back here, which add 2 additional analog channels. And then beyond that, of course, 10 channels instead of 8. Okay, so model select, we have model type. Model type needs to be already set. That'll reset if you change it. And then the model name. So it's 150 : space acro. So this is where I'm gonna type in the model name. Of course, this is the UMX Turbo Timber Evolution. So I'm gonna type that in and come right back. I'm using Legacy keyboard, full disclosure. Okay, so we have the UMX Turbo Timber Evo. We'll go back out, aircraft type. Now this is a normal wing type, except you do need to add flaps. So an aileron, 1 flap. Now how do I know that? Because I know how this plane is set up, but then also you can go over here and it's gonna tell you different things like this, okay? Does it even say it? It doesn't, okay. Well, in that case, it doesn't say it. And then you can go in here and select image, standard. And I think they have a timber in here. If not, we can do that, which is a carbon cub, but it's pretty close. I thought there was a timber. Evidently there's not. Why don't we have a King Air, by the way, Horizon? Could we get that, please? What? That looks like the Ultra Stick. The slow Ultra Stick. Okay, we're gonna do that one, okay? And then flight modes. Do we need flight modes on this one? I don't think we do. But if you wanted it, you could do it. I think for now we're not gonna do it. Okay. So we're just gonna go to channel assign, and I wanna disassociate this from B. Okay. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into throttle cut, safety feature, throw it on switch H. Stick moves up, you see it doesn't change its value here. See, that's the throttle cut. Now the throttle cut's off, you can see it goes live. So now it's back on and we know it's working. And then we're gonna go to flap system. I'm gonna assign that to switch B. Acknowledge my assignment. Set the speed to 2 seconds. Did they even show it?
Yep, right above the dark black telemetry alarms.
It doesn't say the speed. So I'm gonna do 2 seconds. Okay. I do want it on switch B. They're saying position 1 is minus 100. Okay, good. Looks like 17% elevator correction, which is crazy.
Wow.
And then 30, are you kidding me? Okay, so this is 100 with a 30% correction. Okay. And then 2 seconds deployment speed as we discussed. So now if you look down here, if you're trying to test things, you can see how it goes slow. That 2 seconds speaks to minus 150 to plus 150. Okay, so the whole sweep, or excuse me, 100 to 100. So if that means you're going halfway, it should take 1 second. See, 1 Mississippi, about 1 second. Now look, the elevator also moves by a factor of, and by the speed of, okay? So we're done on that. If you guys want mixes, you can do them here. One mix that might be kind of handy would be ailerons to rudder. You can take it to on, and you see how it doesn't allow you to do anything. So sometimes you have to set it to a switch, but I'm gonna just set it to on, and aileron to rudder helps you to coordinate turns. See, there you go. So if you had that set, it would allow you to do that. I'm actually not gonna run that, so just in case you're wondering. Okay, so what else do we need to do? Looks like we have a timer for 5 minutes. Okay, so we'll set that right now, 5 minutes with a 1 out on. That means when you pass over 25% on the throttle stick, it starts. At 1 minute, I want a voice call out. In 20 seconds, I want nothing. At 10 seconds, I want voice. And at expiration, I want tone and vibrate with the tone every minute thereafter. Okay, so then down here, they're saying...
Throttle cut
throttle cut, we already did.
to negative 100?
We already did it.
Okay.
So dual rates high and low. We'll just double check for camera crew's sake. Minus 100.
Okay, it is.
Okay, so dual rates and expo. Now, this is where I'm going to deviate from theirs. They have dual rates on 170, okay? So that means that they want you to have a switch that's dedicated to turn your rates up and down, okay? I don't do it that way. Expo's 10% on aileron, elevator, and rudder, which you'll find shortly is exactly what I'm going to do. But I'll do it a different way. Back just a little bit there. Okay, so this is where I want my stuff set up. Switch F. This is my less expo. This is my mid expo, and then this is going to be my maximum expo and reducing of rates. Okay, and we do that for all 3 of the control channels for pitch, roll, and yaw. This, of course, is pitch for the elevator. So what that means is when you take off the plane, you're going to start in the middle. If you get to flying and you're like, you know, I just need more expo, it's too touchy. There you go. But it's by a factor of 2 or by a factor of 1/2. Okay. Then when you land, you would set that particular control channel to half or double would become the middle. So suppose you wanted to go to this setting and you felt it flew better, but only on the pitch axis, and then it kind of deadened the sticks on your roll and yaw. And you're like, I don't like those, but I do like the elevator here. So you would go just into the elevator and you'd make your change. You would make 20 would be your new median point, and then you'd probably leave a rate there. And then at this higher rate, you'd go to 40, which would be a doubling effect. And then you'd go up here and you'd make this like 10. So that's your new middle. And then you go flying and you test it and you're like, man, that's way too much, but I do really like that. And then if you get to flying and you're like, I need a little more sensitivity, there you go. Okay, But I'm gonna set that back to my normal setting, which is 10 on the middle, which is where we start from, 5 on the top, and then 20 with the rates having been dropped to 90, okay? That's what we always do for default. And we've been doing that for years and had great success. But with AS3X and Safe, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of expo. And if you have another alternative stabilizer involved, sometimes you don't need that, okay? So we're gonna start in the middle. All right, so throttle cut set, mixing isn't being used. Timer set. Do we have to rotate any channels? Nope, no reversing. All right, so now at this point, we can go ahead and plug in our battery and get ready to bind. So throttle cuts on. Okay, lay that right there. And then we'll make an assignment for AS3X and Safe in a few minutes, but you have to actually attach to the plane first, okay, by binding. Okay, so that rolls up and out. Now, you'll notice that there's no Velcro on my battery. You're like, how are you gonna do that, Brian? There's no Velcro to hold it, but this is Velcro. That's the only way to hold it, right? Well, generally on these UMX planes, they come with a little piece of Velcro, and then I take that Velcro and I make a strap that will allow me to hold whatever battery I like to use. Now, you may find that it's easier to just go ahead and use Velcro. That's fine, but it's just not what I do. So where is this said piece of Velcro? I don't know. It's supposed to be in here. And there it is, okay? See that little black piece? So I will break that out real quick. And I am noticing, I feel like we got shorted one of those. But I don't know, maybe they come in the actual flaps. Oh, there's our Velcro. It slipped out of my fingers. Okay. And then, by the way, these are little covers that work for the floats, okay? I think I said flaps just now, but I meant to say floats. Okay, so my apologies, guys. All right, so now how does this work? The system that you use to hold your batteries, Brian, seems like a lot of wasted time. You know, it just kind of depends on what you think is important in your flight performance. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my tape and show you exactly how I do it. It's very simple and it works well for what we've done in the past. Okay, so I'm gonna lay my Velcro down. I'm gonna use my scissors. Now you don't have to do it the way I do it, but if you ask me for help and then you do it some other way, don't be surprised if I give you the same guidance I gave you in this video. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull this out, kind of a lot of it. And you're like, geez, you need a lot of tape for that. Not really, but what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna take and just put the last little teeny tiny bit on the edge of the battery to make it easy. And then watch what I do. I'm gonna roll it, and I'm gonna roll it until it comes all the way around. And then right when I'm getting close to where I want it, I'm gonna pull it just so it kind of rips that tape off of the battery, and then I'm just gonna stick it to it, okay? Now watch this. Now I'm a full quarter of a rotation past. Now I'm just gonna go back the opposite direction. Watch this. Peel it off. And then look at this, guys. Pretty simple stuff, looks nice and neat. It's simple and basic, but now you don't have that tape exposed and sticking to the battery every time that you go to use this plane, okay? Now I'm gonna take right where I want it to be. I'm gonna cut it. And sometimes we do this and we get a little bit too tight. You can see now we don't have a whole lot of excess, but look, it's so tight I can't get it off of there, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna do the same, almost the exact same thing, except I'm not gonna stick it to itself. I'm gonna pull this out. Now I've got my spacer in there. My spacer is gonna mean that the second piece is gonna work perfect or near perfect. See that little chunk, that little triangle? I'm gonna stick that down just so I get a little something to work with. Okay, going around, went just past. Now, I can pull out a little bit more. I know it's clear, it's kind of hard to see, sorry guys. And just lining this up so I'm nice and perpendicular to that tape that rolls off. Okay, so we'll just go one more turn past, and then I'm just gonna stick that down and cut it. There it is. Now, look at this, guys. Now I can pull, And I'm gonna just real carefully, because I can hang on to the leads, I'm gonna try to slide that off and see if I can get this off. Because you remember how I got that little tail going? What you can do is now, wherever it's stuck, like I can see where the tail is, I can try to rotate this around a little bit. And usually I'll slide them off and they'll come off without any fight. But of course, since I'm filming this, there is gonna be a fight. So I'll show you what I have to do this time. We try not to just clip everything out, because a lot of this stuff is how you learn how to get better at doing this. So I've got toothpicks, Q-tips, and China glue. Okay. Just lay this out of the way. So it's right there, or where is it? I think where I started it was right here. Okay. So I'm just gonna take a little Q-tip, or excuse me, a little edge, and just slide it up in there. And all I gotta do is just release the little corner here, okay? So once that corner's released, it should slip right off. And of course it's, you know, like I said, the rule is if you're filming, it's not going to go right. Okay, so I'm just spinning it, just freeing up that tape. And you just, for any UMX plane you've ever had, it works really sharp. And now I'm just basically releasing that little edge of tape that still exists, that's wanting to hold on, okay? And then when we're done, we're actually gonna release the whole thing and take out that middle lining that was just built as a spacer into this application, okay? And then that's gonna allow it to slide on and off the battery easy enough that we can hold the battery, but hard enough, because it's a tight enough fit, that you can actually hold it in place while you're flying a little 3D plane, okay? So now that that's done, this sucker is gonna fight me all the way, tooth and nail, all the way to the grave, it looks like. Okay. Okay, so we've got that most of the way slid off. And admittedly, I fought that more than I was hoping we would fight it. And then once you get that off of there, then you can take that bottom piece off. And that bottom piece is kind of the piece that's just discarded. You're like, that seemed like a lot of work, Ryan. Well, it kind of was more work than it should have been, but I tend to do that here on this channel and in life. So you see, I'm gonna put that in there, and then I can just get the regular scissors in there, cut this, and then that'll slip right out of there and not be part of the application. We can throw that stuff away in a minute. And then this becomes the piece that slides on and off when you want to slide it on and off to actually fly your airplane, okay? See, and you've got it, so it's nice tight fit now. So if you hold on to that, the battery won't slip out, okay? And if you ever do that and you want to make it real easy to put it in and out, take a little baby powder and just put it on there, okay? So now we've got this big piece of Velcro, and I'm like, well, that's about double the size we need to actually hold this battery, so I'm gonna just clip it in half. And the reason we're gonna clip it in half is because this is a really different size of hook and loop than some of the other hook and loop that we use in other applications. And so it is handy to have it, and I can make one that holds a 200 milliamp battery as well as the one that holds the 300 milliamp. So I'm going on the flat side I want. It would have been better to probably stick that in the battery so I can manipulate this the way I think it would need to be manipulated, okay? So it's just got an edge of tape that's catching. All right. Now, of course, that is optional. You could just put the Velcro right onto the battery and have it done. But I like this method better because I feel like it gives you more flexibility as you're working, okay? So now I'm gonna just go ahead and make sure my throttle cut's on, make sure I can control the plane in case that prop would come alive, okay? So I'm gonna sit this in. Actually, just gonna plug it in first. The black is toward the camera crew. And be very gentle with this plug. Oh yeah. I'm gonna stick this right there so that those leads don't get into the servo linkages or the servos back there. Okay, and you wanna hurry and let this down. Okay, and we'll just put on the lid. Okay, very cool. So now I'm gonna point this away from me. Lay all the batteries, scissors, and utensils everything out of the way. And then I'm gonna come in here and you can bind two ways. You can either shut this off, press and hold that button while powering, or you can click and scroll down in the function list to bind. Bind. I'm gonna put a finger here. Notice the lights came alive. Very cool. So now we have elevator, we have roll. Look how much throw there is. That's called differential, by the way. See how that goes way up, but this one goes down only a little bit? Take off flaps, landing flaps, so cool. Roll left, excuse me, yaw left, yaw right, steerable tail wheel, and that looks totally sweet, okay? Throttle cut is on and tested, so it is working, found to be working, although we have started our timer, so I'm gonna cancel that. Now, what I wanna do is I wanna just double verify, roll left, roll right, elevator up, elevator down, yaw left, yaw right. Now there should be a channel that automatically is assigned for safe. Yep, you can tell there's definitely a change in status. Way more, way less, okay? So we don't even have to go in and set it, but what I'm gonna do is I'll show you the trick. If you're not sure still, that is definitely in safe. Trying to find the quickest route to level. Also look at the elevator. It's pointed up, it's pointed down. Now, it's not pointing. Okay, but AS3X is not active because I haven't applied throttle. So throttle at over 25% activates AS3X. That's power. Throttle cuts on. So now watch the rudder. When I move it toward the camera crew, it's gonna go that way. And then toward me, it's gonna go toward me. Now elevator is gonna go up when I pull it up and down when I push it down. Now aileron, when I lift this wing, that's gonna go up. See? When I go down, it's gonna push down, but that one's gonna come up too. See? So that's how you can tell if it's going in the right direction. And then also, how do we know if we're out of safe? It's not auto leveling, but then when I do this, now it's trying to find the level attitude. Okay? So now, I don't want this to be the normal flight mode. I want that to be the normal flight mode. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go click and go to servo setup, travel, into reverse, and I'm gonna go to gear and just rotate it. So now it's reversed. So now that means my normal flight mode is here, and then watch safe. Safe is on, you can see that it reduced the amount of play. The other thing you can do is you can see where your limited bank angles are. By pulling up on the stick, you can see it stops going. You can roll. It's gonna stop you there, wow.
Wow.
Roll the other way, same thing. Now elevator up. You can tell where it stops. And it allows you to go up until there. Now push the stick down. Hold on, I gotta switch hands. Push the stick all the way down. You can see it's pointed down. That's the limit down. That's the limit up, right there. And then the roll limit is there. That's a lot, goodness gracious. So yeah, so this thing is gonna be super cool. So now, if you don't know what safe is sensor-aided flight envelope. So if I were to take this plane and I were to just turn safe on and just throw it, like a regular airplane, like a glider, the thing would just fly straight and level as long as it could fly before it stalls, okay? But it would fly in a straight line and it would demand, angle demand to level, okay? Now, if wind pushes the wing down, then it's gonna resist that with AS3X, which is artificial 3-axis stabilization. Artificial 3-axis stabilization, okay? So that's what AS3X is. AS3X is the basis from which we operate safe. Safe and AS3X come as two available options that could be turned on or off, but generally on bind and fly planes from E-flite or Horizon Hobby, AS3X is always on, but safe is not always on, okay? So if you wanna fly a plane without AS3X, there are sometimes ways to turn it off. Throttle cut is on. Now let's talk about what more telemetry we've got. Telemetry speaks to the amount of data that's coming back to us here that we can look at. Okay. Okay, so we have our receiver pack voltage. Okay, and then we have the flight pack voltage. Excuse me, that's 4.2, so that'd be the min-max. Then this shows the RPMs. I'm gonna just go ahead and turn the plane around and secure it. Throttle cuts off. Okay, so you're seeing your RPMs. So it doesn't seem to be totally updating there, so throttle cuts on. And there's your voltage on your pack, which is super nice. So throttle cuts off, and it knows that it's 12.3. Watch it recover. That is a lot of power.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and you can see the motor amps. That's super handy. See how quick it recovers? Throttle cuts on. Okay, now, see, it's still recovering a little bit. Pretty cool. Having live information like that really helps to make it useful. Okay.
Value 50.
Now, what I want to do is I want to look inside of here for one last feature, and that is, I don't know if we have thrust reverse. I kind of don't think we do. Because if we do have thrust reverse, it'd be cool to have it. I don't know if we do, so I'm just going to go with we don't. Okay, so if we had thrust reverse, you'd have to activate it, and you would generally see it over here. But I'm gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna scroll down to telemetry. I'm gonna check telemetry. Auto config. It's already done it. So it didn't add anything. So we should be already set up there. Let's look at forward programming. It probably won't load. So when you exit forward programming, it's like a reboot of the radio, okay? So that's what happened because we're not charged for flying voltage, okay? So that's an alarm. So I'm gonna click and I'm gonna scroll down to audio events, and this is where you can make a change to that. Telemetry warnings, smart battery. I don't care about that. And it's not a smart battery, by the way. This is going to be mathematically derived by knowing that it's a 3-cell, dividing the nominal voltage by 3. Okay. I don't care about overcharge, and I don't care about startup. But some people do want that. Of course, 4.2 would be fully charged, and I would say if we're above 4, that's probably a pretty good place to have a tone alarm. If you want, you can also inhibit that by just going like that. I'm going to leave that one on. Smart ESC, low voltage alarm. You can actually turn on a 4 amp max. That's crazy. You can have an alarm. You can also have a FET max. And you can do status reports, warning reports. Okay. You can also have an alarm. And the total cells is 3. Or you can go to 2. Or you can go to 3. Or you can go to 4. Or whatever. But the thing is, it's automatically populated with 3 because it knows what the cell count is currently. Okay. And then you have the min and max. And you can set an alarm. That's all inhibited. And the flight log. I don't know that I really care about that, but what's kind of cool about that is you can see the actual strength of the signal. So that's kind of neat. Okay. So all sorts of stuff that you can do. And this plane is going to give you all those features. And yes, that's another time when it's going to give you a warning about not being charged for flying because it thinks it's the virgin startup. Okay. So now if you're flying this on 2S, do you have to go in and change the settings? I don't believe so. It should automatically tell. And I love flying the turbo timber. It is a great flying plane. And this is a really close analog to the turbo timber Evo in the 1.5 meter size. But it's so small and it's easy to fly just about anywhere. And those bright LEDs are gonna be great. Okay. You've also got the anti-crash collision, anti-collision beacons on top and bottom. And you can notice that you can see these lights from a lot of different angles, which is really handy. So that being said, we hope that we answered tons of your questions, probably a few that you didn't have, we answered. And we hope that you guys are learning a lot and getting out there and flying, because really, at the end of the day, we want you guys out flying because we need more people flying. We need to drive down the cost of these things by having larger volumes. We also need to make sure that we are heard from a regulatory standpoint when we complain to the federal government, which should have no part in our lives as it pertains to these things, but they do. Guess what? This thing should be sub 250. Let's check. If it's sub 250 and remote ID goes in full effect and all hell breaks loose because of it, guess what? This thing is sub 250. So let's see what happens. This is all up weight with 3S, okay? I don't know if this is gonna sit on here. See if we can get lucky. I'm actually I'll put a cup on here.
Yep.
And we can zero it. Now that noise you hear is normal. Okay, so we'll zero off the cup and then we'll just kind of let it balance across the lip of the cup. That would be 145 grams, guys. Mm-hmm. And yes, if you want to see it in ounces, it's 5 ounces, 0.1, okay? But 145 grams on 3S.
3S.
So you should be totally good if you go to a 2S, and the 2S, of course, is going to be considerably lighter, probably by a factor of about a third. And I can say this from personal experience, this is one of the best ultra micros that you can get. It's very well rounded. It's going to fly and do just about everything you want to do. And now that we have 3S, it's going to be ultra capable. It was already capable on 2S, folks. So super happy with the looks of this, super happy with the fit and finish. And yes, it is basically the same looking, couple small tweaks, but I would say what an amazing plane it was before. And if you guys want to get one and you want to help support Brian Phillips RC because you got some value out of this video, or maybe one of the other 1,700 or so videos that we have, what you can do is you can just follow the links in the video description below and you can buy this for yourself. That's the best way to financially support us because we win, the manufacturers that work with us win, and you win. You don't pay an extra penny. You get to keep whatever RC bucks or bonus programs or whatever sort of commitments that you've got going out there. We don't know what you guys have. And if there's coupon codes, you can check at brianphillipsrc.com and we will help you to see what might be available. But that being said, if you don't want to buy this particular plane, maybe you've already purchased one or you have a really good relationship with your local hobby shop, another way you can help support us is with Patreon. If you want to become one of the small group that we interact with on a pretty regular basis and also supports us financially on a monthly basis, that's Patreon. We still think the better option is to buy planes. Or if you want to do both, that's great too. But then we have PayPal if you just, hey, I had a really good month, got our tax returns, whatever it is, and I want to throw a couple bucks your way. That's one way you could do it. But still, the better way is buy an amazing plane that you love and live it up. You don't get to take it with you when you die, I promise. And you never know when that beer truck's coming. So if you guys like this thing and you want to help support us, buy it from the links below. If you hate this thing and you think it's the most annoying, crappiest plane you've ever thought of, then don't buy it. Buy something else. Here's a couple other good choices. Guys, we have literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos that show everything aviation, fixed wing, helis, quads, rototillers.
We did that.
Tractors, build videos on this house. If you guys want to see a build video on this house, we have that. It's a little bit limited, but still, it's kind of cool if you're curious. So we've done it all, guys. 1,700 videos. We filmed everything, including kittens.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is going to be a sweet plane. It's going to speak for itself when you get it. And so hopefully our flight video helps to close the deal. And if you guys want to support us, buy it. Or buy that. Or buy that. By the way, that Carbon Z T28 is glorious. It's amazing. But also, you know what else is amazing? The original UMX timber. If you have one and you just want to kick it up a notch, right here, this is how you do it. You'll be going 3S all the way. It's going to really improve the power and 3D flight characteristics, but you still get that long, luscious wing that I love so much. And by the way, if you don't like this and you want more of a 3D platform, then what you can do is you can get the Turbo Timber, excuse me, not the Turbo Timber, you can get the Timber X UMX, which is an amazing flying plane. It's only got flaperons instead of inboard flaps and ailerons. I am a big proponent of inboard flaps and ailerons. I think they work best in that application, but if we don't have that, a very close second would be flaperons that are full length. The Timber X UMX, or the UMX Timber X, has full length flaperons and they are huge. So very good option if you want a little bit more of a 3D ship. But I still prefer and have always preferred the way that this flies because of my flying style, which is low, slow, realistic as I can make it look. I mean, I am, you know, always growing in my skills, but I like it to look like a real plane and I like it to function like a real plane. And I want it to be as close to real as I can get it to look. So 3D for me is kind of like, whatever. But I know some of you guys love 3D and I don't mean to take anything away from you. The other thing is, if you want to do FPV and stuff like that, you can definitely do it on this. It's very small. Get yourself a little mini whoop set up and you could have a really fun time. I'm not personally into FPV and I don't want to do aerial footage because of the Part 107 requirements. So we're not going to do that here on this channel, but just know that it can be done. Also, if you're curious what it looks like inside, if you haven't ever got one of these, there is a multi-purpose brick in there. So just make sure as you're loading stuff that you don't actually hit those servos. Now also, you see my little Velcro idea? It's not completely impervious to movement, but that thing is pretty much where it belongs, okay? Now we never did look at the CG, and so I should probably mention this quick before we close out this video, but you see our little marks right here and right here. I'm just gonna go right in the middle on the wing spar. Perfect CG with 300 milliamp hour. And guess where it is? Right in the middle of the Velcro. Well, it's actually right there kind of at the front strip, okay? So that gets us right where we need to be and it works really well. So guys, hopefully we've answered all your questions. Definitely get this thing if you want an amazing time with the UMX. And by the way, if you haven't seen the pits, if you haven't seen the Timber X UMX, both amazing options. If you haven't seen the Voodoo P51 Ultra Micro Extreme, the UMX, another amazing option. What else did we do recently?
Those are the recent ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you guys want the latest and greatest UMXs, we have all of them covered for you. And if you have questions, leave them in the comments. We'll do our best to get to them. Although we've been a little bit backlogged, we try to interact as much as we can with the audience, but I physically cannot keep up with all the comments. There's just so many of them, and we really appreciate you guys. If you're on Facebook and you're watching these videos through an embedded feed, we appreciate you too, but we don't reply to anything on Facebook, so come over to YouTube and we can do it there. But also, if you guys really want to interact with us, one other trick you can do is if you go through Patreon, I do get notifications and I tend to interact more with the audience there. It's not because I want to alienate the non-paying people over here. There's really only a small group of people on Patreon. It's very small, like 30 some odd people. So it's not a lot of people. We have 120,000 subscribers. You got like 38 people that support us on Patreon. And people come and go, and we totally get it. We never want you guys to feel guilty about that, ever. And the thing is, if you guys have a, lose a job or, have some unexpected expense come up, whatever, that's fine. We know that this is just an amazing hobby and you're probably gonna have to fix the engine in your car. But we do want you to live this up because these are amazing and really, it's an amazing, wholesome skill that you have to earn. And so for me, it's real enough to matter. And so if you haven't, or you won't, or for whatever reason you just can't bring yourself to do it, we hope that we can just give you that nudge to get you out of the chair and get down to the hobby shop or get to the website by following the link below and just buy one of these amazing planes. You will be amazed how much easier it is to fly than what you remember from back in the 80s when you had your 72 megahertz crystals and your Futaba 3-channel radio that cost $1,000. First of all, you can spend a lot less on better technology. You can do more with it. And I have 150 models in here, one of which is fake. I got to delete it. So 149 models in here. And I think I have a couple duplicates, full disclosure. But the thing is, that's 150 models spread across, whatever this thing costs. You had to buy a set of crystals every time you bought a new plane. It was like $90 for that. Even if you reuse the same receiver, it was still a lot of money. So I remember those days. But the thing is, I wasn't flying in those days. My dad was flying, and I was watching. Now, I would kill to get something like this as a kid. I would have killed to have something. I remember asking for toys exactly like this when I was a kid. But now you can get it, which is just amazing, and it's so cool. So I'm glad I had enough patience to survive that long to be able to get these things. But then there's so many more amazing and incredible offerings, but these things are small and full of performance, and you won't miss a beat because this thing will do wind, it'll do less than perfect weather, it's going to do super short takeoffs and landing. I could take off and land from this thing 100% guarantee. I could probably take off from where it is and not hit here. Okay, I'm not going to do it. This room's not quite big enough. I could probably fly in here, but I'm not going to do it because I need to fly this outside. It's going to be amazing. But yeah, in a gymnasium, you could totally fly this plane, especially with these huge barn door flaps. You can definitely take them out and you can get this thing to slow down nicely. So you're gonna love it. So stay tuned, guys. There is so much more coming from Brian Phillips RC, and we really appreciate you guys. Our heartfelt thanks to all of you that do support us and have supported us for years. We haven't forgotten about you guys. We know that you're still there as we grow. We're trying to stay just like we were before, but just get better. And so hopefully you guys are seeing that, the fruits of our labor. Obviously the camera crew puts in tons of effort. So kudos to the camera crew, which is my wonderful wife of many years. If you guys weren't sure, her name is Megan. I don't call her camera crew off camera. It's just something we do on this channel. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry. You're not gonna like other things on this channel, I promise. You can't make everybody happy. We've learned that from experience. But these you can definitely like. So come back for more on Brian Phillips RC. Thanks for watching.